Welcome to Boardgamer Strategy Guide, the place where you can learn little tips and tricks on how to improve your board gaming. This is not a how-to guide, this is a strategy guide, and we're going to consider some beginners' tips and tricks on how to improve your game when playing Gaia Project. Now this is a beginner's guide, and we're going to start off with one of the beginner factions, Hadsch Hallas. Let's get to it. So first things first, looking at our board, we'll notice that Hadsch Hallas is all about income. We can maximize our income, especially considering we get a boost on step 1, or we'll definitely be trying to get to the end of that tree there. Now what would be some of the different tiles we'd be looking for in order to maximize our use of income? Let's take a look. We'd be wanting our +4, we'd be wanting our +1 and our +1 knowledge. We'd definitely be wanting our charge 4, and then we'd also be wanting our +1 and +1 charge. What about endgame scoring? We'd be looking at federations, buildings, we might be looking at sectors, and we might also give consideration to planets colonized. Now when you're playing as a Hadsch Hallas, you're going to be putting so many buildings out, especially your trading stations. So of course we want to see them as the round scoring tokens. And ideally if they're earlier on in the game, that will really help you maximize them. Now if you're wanting to get a high score, of course you're going to need to look at advanced tech tiles, and these are some of the ones that you'll be wanting to consider. And let's see whereabout we'll be looking to have them. So ideally we'll be wanting to consider getting to the end of either the income or the science track. The reason being that most of those tiles are going to directly affect the gameplay that you've already been doing with Hadsch Hallas in building your trading stations. Now finally we'll want to look at the round boosters. Of course anything with an income is great. Anything that can give us charge is great. Anything that will give us points for putting buildings down is great. And of course anything that can help us to extend our range or pay a terraforming cost would be a big boost. When it comes to tile placement, of course we're going to spend a whole game just getting up the science and the income tracks. So if we have any of those ideal tiles there, that's what we want to see. Moving on to the map, of course Hadsch Hallas' homeworld is red, and the most easily accessible terraforming worlds are blue and orange. So we'll be wanting to look for ones that are adjacent to our home world. But of course we want to be looking at long game expansion, and the nearest accessible worlds would be yellow and white. So of course it wouldn't be a bad thing to also look at where yellows and whites are on the board to see if that can help us with our end game, especially if we're looking at sectors for an end game scoring criteria. Finally, let's look at difficult matchups. We've got Nevlas, we've also got Terrans, next we've got Xenos, and then finally we've got Geodons. These are particularly difficult matchups, and let's explore why. Well, with Nevlas, they do great at taking blue planets, they're really good at power, they're a powerhouse. Xenos will be trying to take the orange planets from you, and also yellow for later expansion. Geodons, all about taking the same planets we like, red, yellow and orange. And Terrans do a great job of taking our home worlds and also taking whites. Later on in the game they'll be taking oranges as well. A bonus tip for any new players to Gaia Project, it's often trying to remember how many steps you can take in terraforming a planet. A little tip comes on the endgame scoring board. For example, we're learning Hadsch Hallas, which is red. Now a little tip is you can see each step you move around that board reminds you of how many steps it would cost to build on that planet. So if you're red, 1 step either side, 2 steps either side, 3 steps either side. And that makes it a little bit easier than always looking at your board if your board is confusing you, because there is a lot of symbols, especially if you're a new player. So as we've seen in this Gaia Project strategy guide for Hadsch Hallas, you've got a lot of different things you can do. Most of it is around credit and maximizing on your ability to use credits. So that is your beginner's guide for Hadsch Hallas.